Welcome to Doom the Darkages, where you roleplay as an angry gorilla, but instead of fighting 100 men, you fight an entire armada of demons through hell and medieval Earth. This is now the third entry of the Doom reboot, and once again, it has completely managed to flip the script on how the game is played. Back in 2016, things went back to the basics, where you spent most of your time spamming the super shotgun and running in circles with demons. Then came Doom Eternal, and the dev said you are now addicted severely to Adderall and crank that intensity meter to an 11. The best way to view both games is 2016 being the rough draft and Doom Eternal as the complete realized vision of id Software. It's truly hard not to call Doom Eternal as one of the greatest shooters that has ever graced my greasy gamer hands. I absolutely loved the ammo management, the high octane action, and those goddamn beautiful weapon swaps. Simply literal perfection. It was truly one of the greatest gaming experiences I've ever had in any game, and it came at a perfect time when the world began to close down to a certain lethal disease spreading throughout the world. Yet, as much of a fan I was of the Eternal combat loop, some didn't agree due to its speed and locked-in gameplay loop. id Software saw that criticism and decided to go back in the kitchen and prove that they could satisfy each of the fan bases. Previously we had run and shoot with 2016, and with Eternal we had the iconic jump and shoot, and now we're at standing your ground and shooting. The Darkages is all about becoming the tank you've always wanted to be. For now, let's go and begin our journey to rip and tear as many demons as possible.
What the fuck? There's so many of these guys.
Doom is finally back, and it's simply more metal than ever before. id Software has managed to once again completely top themselves in what they've created for this chapter of Doom. Crazy gameplay changes that completely change how you play Doom? Check. Amazing arenas with intense battles? Check. And a story that will be completely ignored because it's a Doom game? Check. They even completely went away from the futuristic sci-fi world to a medieval hellscape filled with demons. Now, by far one of the biggest changes that comes with the Darkages is the Slayer's shield. The shield is simply awesome. This thing can not only block, but it can also dive bomb demons like a miniature nuke. The shield accounts essentially for all of Doomslayer's mobility, as id realized that the Doomslayer should hop off the Adderall for an entry or two. You're certainly a lot slower in the Darkages, especially with the game's tagline being stand and shoot. The game's all about positioning yourself and dishing out as much damage as possible. But I had a hard time resonating with the whole stand and shoot due to playing the game on nightmare difficulty.
Oh fuck, I didn't realize that was a sticky grenade. You son of a bitch, bro. Fucking dog shit area. Where am I? Where am I? Where the fuck just happened? I was so lost in the arena.
One other significant change has to be the new parry mechanic with the shield, and I gotta admit, I do love myself a solid parry mechanic. It honestly feels so right, especially since you're facing significantly more demons, which now shoot out giant AoE attacks towards your way. And now that you don't have a dash or a double jump, it just made sense for allowing the player to have some kind of counter to all the chaos. The shield also comes in with built-in aura that allows you, the player, to have direct buffs after each successful parry. For example, let's take a look at the rocket launcher. After a few upgrades to the weapon, you gain the ability to directly heal upon close impact from your rockets after a successful parry. It's not just the rocket launcher. There's quite a few weapons that synergize well with the shield, like the ball gobbler weapon, which gets powered up attack after a parry too. There's a certain level of harmony when it comes to the shield and weapons, and I'm so glad it was able to achieve a balance where one doesn't overtake the other. Yet that's not all. Once you get a little further into the game, you begin to unlock individual upgrades for the shield. Certain actions could reward you with a small little turret, which absolutely destroys everything around you. Even if you find the parry a bit too forgiving, the developers realized that if they made the game too easy, you have adjustable sliders to adjust the difficulty. So I made sure to crank that slider as low as possible to really feel that ultimate Doom experience. There's something so satisfying when you begin to enter that flow state and you're hitting parries back and forth, it just really hits in the right spot. Now with the shield, Doomguy simply feels like Captain America at this point, and you can't change my mind, especially considering that Doomguy has also been stuffed into a convection oven just like Steve Rogers to receive godlike powers. While the shield is by far the show stealer, the game has quite a good few amount of weapons. Nearly every weapon comes with its own each variant, except for the ball crusher weapon. I'm not sure why that didn't get anything. The weapons are quite beefy and feel very powerful in the Slayer's hands. I absolutely love the creativity of the weapons too. There's just something so funny about the Slayer using a weapon which crushes up demon skulls and shoots out tiny fragments towards his enemies. But things are certainly not perfect in the new system for the Darkages. There's a lot of weapons within the game, and with the reduced weapon swap speed, this will mean that most players will not utilize everything within their arsenal. I think its goal was for players to find their own personal rotation of weapons and creating a flow for yourself when in combat. I do think the game would benefit with a slight increase in swap speed, and maybe allowing the player to switch weapons when certain shield animations occur. It would greatly increase the combat flow and the usage of weapons within the game. Overall, most players will figure out and stick to a playstyle they like. And I think that's truly the whole point of the Darkages. You are your own demon slayer. One major complaint of the previous Doom game was the lack of power when it came to melee combat. Well, within the Darkages, melee combat is now a full core mechanic of the Doom Slayer. The Doom Slayer is now able to combo multiple knuckle sandwiches and deliver a finisher of a Sparta kick. Melee also functions as a way for the player to receive ammo, armor, and health. The gauntlets come with a lot of power and a lot of slow-mo. Please, Id, let me turn off all the dog shit slow-mo in the game. As you progress throughout the game, you'll find 2 more melee weapons which both have their own quirks and playstyles. The melee combat is overall fine, but there's just something I don't like about it. I'm not sure is it because of how bouncy the punches feel, or if it's the slow-mo that makes the experience overall worse. One downside with the new melee combat came the removal of glory kills. Mostly. They're not fully gone, but they're tremendously toned down than before, and if I'm being honest, I think that the removal of them was a mistake. Glory kills is something that the rebooted franchise has become known for, the beautiful over-the-top destruction of death that the Doomslayer delivers. In the Darkages, they replaced the system with executions, and they're mostly boring. The new system at least makes sure that you can't really miss any executions. It definitely happened in the previous entries, but I don't think it was as much of a big deal as it's been made out to be. I think one major downside that came with the execution system is repetition. You begin to see the same animation over and over again, and it begins to feel quite boring. I wish there was just more variety to it. Glory kills, may you rest in peace. You shall never be forgotten. id Software has always been a king when it comes to certified banger gameplay loops. Yet, for the Darkages, they really knocked it out of the park when it comes to game's visuals and art style. And changing the game into a medieval fantasy just feels so right for this type of franchise. It's like a match made in heaven. The scale of the game is simply insane, but what is even crazier is the level of variance that each mission has. From military bases, to the gates of hell, to literal Cthulhu's home. The world just feels so alive, as if you were living through a generational war on this tiny little planet. It feels like there's always something happening in the background of each levels. Ships flying around, titans battling it out. Even when you play as a mech, your sheer size is destroying buildings after every step. Several of the demons have been redesigned to fit more into the aesthetic of the Darkages. The cyber demon even has wings now. Most of the designs are great and look so metal that you could cut yourself from all the edge. The demon design is by far the best we've had since the reboot in 2016. Looks isn't all that has changed. Many levels now vary in length and size. Some levels are more in line with the classic Doom feel, while other levels feel like giant scrolling battlefields, filled with demons and mini-bosses. Overall, levels are a lot flatter and don't have the same level of verticality as previous entries. It makes sense as the Doomslayer doesn't have the same amount of mobility as before. The demons are more placed like chess pieces on a battlefield, holding formation as they deliver bullets and attacks. The arenas are simply fun and have enough differences to keep them fresh. I did find that the mini-bosses arenas kinda suck though. Generally, you can't touch them till you destroy enough enemies, and then you can finally attack the mini-boss. It's not terrible, but spending most of your time avoiding one single demon until you can hit it, and once defeating it, receiving the same level up animation simply kinda sucks. One thing that is certainly much worse is the secrets within the levels. Well, they're not really hidden. The map indicates where every single secret is hidden. Sure, sometimes the secrets are hidden behind a puzzle or a barrier, but it's hard to consider them as secrets. They're right there on your map.
Half of the secrets in this game aren't secrets because the map tells you where they are.
Yeah.
I think if they changed the secrets to something else, I think people would have a lot less of an issue with the system. Additionally, it makes sense why they had to make these secrets so easy to find, as they're directly tied to the player progression with gold and different materials. Hopefully in a future patch, they somewhat rework the system in some capacity. I still haven't talked much about the mech, but trust me, it's not as bad as the story in this game. As you may know, you play as a not so known angry Gigachad named the Doomslayer. While normally, he's known for his amazing ability to kill demons and doing it on a planet named Mars.
You can't just shoot a hole into the surface of Mars.
Well, in the Darkages, Doomguy has somehow been relocated to a different dimension named Argent Denur. Well, you may wonder how he got there, and after lightly skimming through the wiki and verifying my ability to read, he somehow became stranded on the world of Argent Denur, which was completely a different dimension after his indefinite stay in hell. Right. These games were never really about story that much. Within the planet of Argent Denur, he receives powers from a mysterious creature Sam Hayden, and went from the estranged Doom Guy to the infamous Doomslayer, known for his abilities to annihilate demons in the matter of seconds. Well, everything I just mentioned isn't really in the Darkages, and mostly on the wiki, so yeah. Back to the plot. Within the Darkages, the Doomslayer has become a puppet of the Makers and is here to protect the Night Sentinels from the demons, who now have a villain who looks so stupid it's kinda hard to take him seriously. Speaking of seriousness, Doom takes itself quite seriously now. There are now full-fledged cutscenes with black bars. We're simply cinema now. Most of the cutscenes are characters standing around monologuing and delivering orders towards the Doom Guy. The villain isn't really any better. Sure, he wants more power, but like, who cares? This guy already controls all of demons from hell. And when he finally does get his ultimate power, he loses it within the same time frame. King Novak's ghost from Eternal had more personality than this 3D rendered husk in the Darkages. It's so sad because you can see the effort, the money, and the time spent in creating these surreal cutscenes from the game. But because they add so little value, they essentially act as a section for the player to realize that they can get up now and go get a snack. Also, the pacing of the game comes to a literal crawl, especially towards the last 2 missions. After successfully defeating a steroid-filled Azarak, one would expect the game to end, especially when you've defeated the main villain at the peak of his power. Well, id couldn't help themselves without ending the game within hell. Sure, the level is great, but it feels like id completely wasted all the build up with Azarak by making the player fight him again, but now with his side chick at his side. Luckily, the boss fights are actually pretty good within the game, and quite a good step up from the Eternal boss fights. How about the music though? One high note of Doom that everyone knows Doom for is its music. When it comes to the Darkages, it's a bit of a hard one for me. Deep down, I believe there's a quality soundtrack in the game. Certainly, not as good as the previous titles. The issue mostly comes down to the music mixing and timings when the tracks start and finish. There's definitely a chance that I'm complaining about something that maybe already has been patched, but the amount of times just when the music would finally hit its stride and you start to enter the aura-filled flow state, the battle and the music would end before you would reach the good part. The music is poorly mixed to the point where if you don't adjust your volume settings, you're barely gonna hear the music. Overall, the soundtrack is pretty good, and the composers behind it did a good enough job to capture the atmosphere and adrenaline that the Doomslayer needs for his conquest against demons. Yet, it still feels like something is missing from what was in the previous games. It's hard to say what it is, maybe I just miss Mick Gordon too much. Doom as a franchise can be considered as one of the greatest games to ever live. Its cultural impact has been insane, and it will go down in history as the franchise that changed gaming forever. I think the Darkages with time will get better, and I really hope when the DLC drops, I hope they go bigger, crazier, and top themselves in the quality that I know it can deliver. Thank you so much for allowing me to take some time from your busy day and rambling about one of my favorite franchises of all time. Don't be afraid to drop that sub, as I'm trying to get those numbers up. Alright, peace out. I'll see you in the next one.